Hello to all our beloved viewers of the channel. Today we return with an incredibly important piece of news. A turning point that perhaps every one of you has been waiting for. News about Truong, the man who once was a powerful anchor, once the hope of many trembling, unstable lives, once the center of a long, aching, loving story. A story everyone wished would one day reach its ending. But life has never allowed him a peaceful existence. After the terrifying incident in the past, Truong lost everything: his childhood memories, the faces of the people he once loved, the lives he once protected, and even the image of the girl who once held his heart. Everything vanished as if it had never existed. Now, Truong has only one truth left to cling to. He is living with his foster mother, the woman who picked him up from the edge of death, saved him, sheltered him, and gave him a mother's love as if he were her own son. You would think that this quiet life might help him heal and slowly rediscover himself. But no, fate pulls him straight back into the storm. A dark force, ruthless, greedy, and full of schemes, is doing everything it can to take away the land and the home that his foster mother has safeguarded for more than 40 years. They don't stop at threats. They are willing to use violence to force the two of them out of the only place they still call home. What's even more heartbreaking is that Truong is no longer a police officer. No badge, no authority, no memories. He doesn't know who he used to be, how strong he once was, or what he once fought for, even at the risk of his own life. The only thing left within him is instinct, a vague but powerful instinct whispering that he must stand up, must protect the mother who saved his life, even if he no longer has any trace of the man he used to be. But is instinct alone enough to stand against men who will stop at nothing for their gain? Will a man who has lost his memories choose to step back, or rise to defend the only thing he has left, and deep within his heart, still covered in mist, a faint memory of a girl named Tieu is slowly awakening? Could she be the key to the locked door of his forgotten past? All the mysteries, all the dramatic twists, and all the choices that will reshape Truong's destiny are about to unfold. Stay with us. Don't blink. Not even for a second, so you won't miss any moment of this emotional, breath-stealing story ahead. That morning, a thin veil of mist covered the sky. The rain drifted down like cold, delicate threads tapping softly against the old tin roof that had weathered the years. When it rained in the village, the air always carried a familiar scent, the smell of damp earth, of decaying leaves, and the faint trace of wood smoke slipping through the gaps of each roof tile. A scent that was both comforting and quietly sorrowful. Inside the small kitchen, a warm glow flickered from the stove. The flames danced, casting wavering reflections across Truong's face. The face of a man sitting silently before the fire, his eyes fixed on the flames as if trying to find something lost somewhere deep and far within them. The rain fell steadily outside, while the crackling of burning wood echoed softly, like memories tapping gently at the edges of his mind. Truong held his hands toward the fire, but his eyes were heavy. He wanted to remember. He tried to remember, but his mind remained a blank page. No lines, no shapes, no trace of who he once was. And every time he tried to think of his past, a sharp pain surged through his head, as if someone were pounding on the locked fragments of his memory. Just then, the wooden door behind him creaked open. Truong's foster mother stepped in her frame, frail, yet her eyes warm and gentle, like the very flame in the stove. She pulled a small chair closer and quietly sat beside him. Smoke curled around them, painting a strangely peaceful scene. "What's wrong, son? Thinking again, aren't you?" she asked softly, her voice cutting through the heaviness wrapped around him. Truong nodded, still staring into the fire. "I still can't remember anything, Mother. The more I try, the more my head hurts." She looked at him for a long moment. In her eyes was a mixture of emotions hard to name: compassion, sorrow, and worry. "Don't force yourself. Everything will come in its own time," she said gently, resting her thin hand on his shoulder. Truong turned toward her. "Mother, who am I really? Where did I come from? Do I have a family? Is someone out there waiting for me?" His voice cracked at the last words. She sighed softly, then suddenly smiled a warm, resilient smile. "Let me tell you again about the day I found you." The rain on the porch seemed to soften. The wind grew still, and only the sound of the fire and her voice filled the little kitchen. That day, it was a night of heavy storms. The wind blew so hard, I thought it would tear the roof right off this house. I heard a cry from the slope at the end of the village. At first, I thought it was an animal, but the groaning, it was human. She paused, recalling each detail clearly. I grabbed my lantern and ran. And there you were, lying under a tree covered in blood clothes torn, your eyes barely able to open. Truong lowered his head, his voice trembling. "I made you suffer so much, Mother." "Suffer what, my boy?" She patted his hand gently, her voice firm yet kind. "Saving you is something I'll never regret." She looked deep into his eyes and continued. "When you woke up, you remembered nothing. I thought it would get better in a few days. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. I asked if you wanted to go to a bigger hospital. You said you were scared and that you wanted to stay. Since then, we've relied on each other." Truong closed his eyes. He had heard this story before, but every time he heard it, his heart ached in a different way, because he knew she was telling the truth, and he knew she loved him like her own child. "But Mother," he said quietly, opening his eyes, "I want to know who I was before all this, where I lived, why I ended up injured on that slope. Did I do something wrong? Did I abandon someone?" Each question he asked was like a blade twisting into his own chest. His foster mother didn't answer immediately. She looked into the fire, then smiled a sad, steady smile. "Truong, your memory is like a closed door, and a closed door doesn't mean lost. It just means it's waiting for the right moment to open. Don't torment yourself. I believe one day you will remember everything." He looked at her for a long time. His eyes were red, but no tears fell. "Mother, if someday I remember everything, will I leave you? The question froze her for a second. Then she smiled softly and rubbed his shoulder. If you find your family, I'll be happy for you. I won't hold you back. But before you go, just give me one hug, all right? Trung let out a small laugh, warm, fragile, but real. He held her hand tightly. I won't forget. And no matter who I used to be, you'll always be the one I owe the most. Outside, the rain began to fade. Inside, the fire still glowed warm and steady. The two of them sat together for a long time, one searching through the pieces of a forgotten past, the other holding on to hopes yet to come true. And right on that dim, rainy morning, Trung had no idea that his life was about to turn onto a new path. A path turbulent, full of trials, but also full of things waiting for him to remember. The rainy morning slowly faded, but the sky still hung heavy with gray clouds as if warning that something ominous was coming. After talking with his foster mother for a long while, Trung put on his old jacket, picked up a long knife and a bamboo basket, and headed out to cut grass for the fish. A daily chore he had done countless times, a small piece of the peaceful new life he was trying to rebuild from zero. The post-rain wind felt colder than usual as it swept across the fields. Droplets clinging to the blades of grass slid onto his hands, icy but oddly grounding. Trung bent down the blade, slicing through the soft green grass with steady swish-swish strokes. He worked diligently, rhythmically, yet deep in his eyes was a restlessness he could not name, as if something awaited him just beyond the horizon. He had no idea that back at home, another storm had already begun. While Trung was still crouched in the field, the sound of a motorcycle engine echoed from afar. But it wasn't the familiar hum of the neighbors. It was harsher, heavier, the kind of sound that belonged to people with bad intentions. When the motorcycle stopped in front of the house, his foster mother, Ba Hai, was in the backyard cleaning mushrooms. She looked up. Her expression changed instantly. A tall, imposing man stepped off the bike, a cap on his head, his sleeves rolled up to reveal tattooed arms from wrist to shoulder. His face was cold, as if carved straight out of violence. His eyes swept across the old house before settling on the frail woman staring at him cautiously. "You must be Bahai," he said, voice dry and blunt. She nodded, calm, but clearly wary. "What do you need, young man?" The tattooed man lowered his sunglasses, looking straight into her eyes. "I'm here on behalf of Thun Tin Company. We've sent multiple notices already. This land is marked for clearance to build a resort project. You should pack up and leave soon." Bahai clenched the hem of her shirt, but her voice stayed steady. "I've lived here for more than 40 years. This land belongs to my parents. I'm not selling. I'm not leaving." He smirked a smile with no warmth, sharp as a blade. "Ma'am, do you think you can stand alone against a whole company? This is a major project. Papers are done. Whether you agree or not, you have to move." "No," she raised her voice, rare for her. "Are you trying to steal land from the people? I'm not signing anything." The air tightened like a string pulled too far. The man stepped closer, his voice dropping the threat no longer hidden. Don't make things difficult. Leave on your own. Before we have to use other methods. She stepped back, heart pounding. He moved in his expression darkening. She knew he wasn't bluffing. He didn't come just to talk. He came to intimidate, and if necessary, to hurt. Don't force me, she whispered, trembling. I'm not forcing, he smirked. I'm just helping you understand the situation. He reached toward the red land certificate lying on the small table near the door. Baha'i hurried forward, blocking him. Don't you touch that. I'll die before leaving this house. His face hardened. He lifted his hand ready to shove her aside, and just as his tattooed hand was inches from her shoulder, there were hurried footsteps at the gate. Trung had returned. He came back carrying a bundle of wet grass on his shoulder. But the moment he saw the scene before him, a stranger lunging at his foster mother, something inside him ignited. The bundle of grass fell to the ground. He didn't think, didn't hesitate. A roar, fierce and primal, erupted in his mind. In a split second, Truong lunged forward, like a predator awakened by instinct. He grabbed the man's wrist just as it was about to strike Baha'i. Stop! Truong barked, his voice thundering like compressed lightning. The sudden force startled the man. He turned, seeing a tall man with blazing eyes clamping down on his arm. Truong's breath was rough, but his gaze was sharp enough to tear the man apart. Who are you? Truong growled. The tattooed man jerked his hand away, taking a step backward to reevaluate. He looked Truong up and down, measuring him. Then he said, I'm here to handle land clearance. This has nothing to do with you. Move aside. Truong stood protectively in front of his mother, an unbreakable barrier. I'll ask again. Who are you? Why are you here? And why were you about to hit my mother? Mother? He let out a short laugh. So you're her foster son, huh? I heard you lost your memory. Then you wouldn't know. This house is part of the project. She has to go. I'm just doing my job. Truong's fist tightened. His heartbeat struck hard when he heard the words has to go. No one is taking this home, he said quietly, dangerously. The man raised a brow. You're standing against my company. I'm standing against anyone who walks into my home and threatens my mother. Silence sharpened like a blade between them. Rainwater dripped from the roof, each drop swallowed by the tension choking the air. The tattooed man scoffed. Fine. Let's see how long you can stop us. He swung his arm, trying to push Truong aside. But this time, Truong didn't move. He blocked the arm, twisted it sharply, forcing the man to recoil in pain. They faced each other, a thin line of violence between them. Baha'i panicked. Truong, don't fight. Let me talk. But Truong stood firm, shielding her unwavering. In his rain-filled eyes was something not quite like the Truong she knew, an awakening. A spark of combat instinct. A shadow of a memory, faint, blurred, but strangely familiar. The tattooed man stared at Truong for a long moment, as if trying to read him. Finally, he spoke. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I'll be back. He put on his cap, climbed onto his bike, and sped away, leaving the sound of the engine echoing down the narrow lane. Rain had stopped, only Truong's ragged breathing, and Baha'i's trembling voice remained. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Why were you so reckless, son? He's dangerous. Truong turned to her, his voice low, steady, burning with resolve. I don't know who I used to be, but I know this. You are my mother, and I won't let anyone harm you. Her eyes glistened, and Truong stood in the wet courtyard, fists clenched, heart pounding like a drum. What he didn't realize was this: the moment he threw himself in front of her, that instinct, that spark of protectiveness, had awakened a hidden fragment of memory, a familiar sensation, as if he had once stood in front of someone else shielding her the same way. A woman, soft eyes, a trembling voice, someone named Tieu. His memories were beginning to stir, and the storm that arrived today was only the beginning. That night, the sky was still gloomy, as if the morning rain had never really ended. Clouds drifted slowly, covering the moon and leaving just enough dim light to make out the roof, the line of bamboo, and the small dirt path still wet with water. The wind slipped through the cracks in the door, carrying the chill of early night into the house, making the flame of the oil lamp tremble. Trung lay on the bamboo bed in the corner of the room, his body exhausted after the tense confrontation with the strange man. But even with his eyes closed and his breathing trying to settle, sleep did not come easily. Inside his chest was a feeling he couldn't name, a mix of fear and restlessness and something else. Like a door in his mind, trying to open, but being held tightly shut by some invisible hand. He turned over a few times. Finally, when the wind outside seemed to settle and the warmth from the blanket slowly wrapped around his tired body, Truong drifted into sleep. And then the dream began. He was standing in the middle of a village road, strange yet so hauntingly familiar. The evening sky was fading orange light, spilling over old brick walls, over fences wrapped in bougainvillea, and over distant rice fields glowing with a warm golden hue. Truong looked around. No one. The wind brushed past, bringing with it the scent of rice, the smell of earth. Everything felt like something he had known long, long ago. Then suddenly, he heard footsteps, soft, light, as if someone was walking toward him very carefully. Truong turned around. A figure appeared at the far end of the road. Slow steps, long hair, white blouse, a small frame, but carrying an aura that made his heart pound wildly. He squinted, trying to see more clearly. The figure came closer, and the last light of the day fell on the girl's face. It was a gentle face, eyes sad but deeply beautiful, a thin, delicate smile like a passing breeze, and a voice that felt as if it had been calling someone's name from a very, very distant memory. She stopped just a few steps away from him. The wind swept through her hair, bringing with it a faint scent like orange blossoms. Truong opened his mouth. "Who are you?" But his voice had barely left his lips when the girl spoke first, her tone soft like a chiming bell. Truong, his heart clenched. His own name. Why did it sound so warm when she said it? He took a step forward. "You know me." The girl looked at him. One look from her, and everything around them seemed to fade away. Then she nodded gently. "I know you." Truong stared into those eyes. In that moment, a flash of memory cut through the darkness in his mind. A small hand holding his, a wooden house on a hillside, a time he ran through the rain to shield someone, arms hugging him tightly from behind, a promise left unfinished. Everything rushed in within a single second, then vanished again, as if it had never been there. He staggered. Pain shot through his head. Truong raised a hand to his forehead, trying to steady himself. The girl quickly stepped forward and reached out to support him. Her hand was strangely warm. "Does it hurt?" she asked, worry in her voice. Trung breathed heavily, looking down at the hand holding his. That feeling, he had felt it before. This wasn't the first time. It couldn't be the first time. He shook his head, trying to focus. "I see. I know you, don't I?" The girl fell silent. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. Then she smiled, a smile so beautiful, it seemed to brighten everything around them. "I'm Tieu. The name struck his memory like a bell. Tieu. Hearing that name made his heart feel as though it were being squeezed. His breath caught. Another image flickered through his mind. A girl laughing by a stream. A hand wiping sweat from his forehead. A sunset where the two of them stood side by side, and she softly said, "Truong, if one day you forget everything, I will still recognize you." His heart went wild. He stared at Tieu, his voice trembling. "Did I abandon you?" The question made her eyes redden. But Tieu didn't answer right away. The wind grew stronger, the sky darker. The whole road began to blur like a painting being wiped away. Truong gripped her hand tightly. "Don't go, tell me." "What did I do? You and I, we..." She looked at him, her eyes so deep and so sad it felt like his heart would shatter. She raised a hand and gently touched his cheek. "You promised you'd come back." Truong froze. His breath stuck in his throat. "And you did come back," she said, her voice fragile as mist. "But you don't remember me anymore." The wind roared. Everything around them began to dissolve. Truong panicked. "Wait, Tieu, don't go. Don't disappear." She stepped back. The breeze lifted the hem of her white blouse. Her figure was fading. Tieu smiled sadly. "I'm still here. It's just, you haven't found me yet." Tieu. He lunged forward, but his hand met only empty air. The village road vanished. Tieu vanished. The last light of day vanished. Only the sound of his pounding heart and his ragged breathing remained. Truong jolted awake. He sat upright on the bed, cold sweat covering his forehead despite the chilly air. Outside, the night was still quiet. The insects chirped in a steady rhythm. The wind circled the roof. But inside Truong, there was a storm. He pressed a hand to his chest. His heart was still racing. "Tieu, he whispered. That name left his lips for the first time, like a fragment of memory being dragged up from the depths. He held his head in his hands, trying to recall her face, her voice, that name. But everything blurred again. Only one feeling remained sharp and undeniable. Truong knew. The girl in his dream was not an illusion. She was real, and she had once been a very important part of his life, a part he had carelessly or helplessly lost. My dear friends, at this point, I truly want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Truong should continue digging into his past, even if doing so might put his foster mother in danger? Who do you believe Tieu really is in his life? His lover, his fiancée, or an unfinished promise he once made? And who do you think is behind the force trying to seize this piece of land? Please leave your comments below so we can discuss together. Every thought and opinion you share is a huge motivation for me to keep writing the next chapters with even more emotion and depth. If you enjoy this series and want to support me so I can write faster, longer, and with better quality, you can buy me a small cup of coffee through the donation link below the video. It's completely optional, no pressure at all. But each contribution truly means a lot and helps me maintain and expand this storytelling project. Thank you all so much for always being here, supporting and loving this channel throughout this journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss any upcoming developments. The next episodes will be incredibly intense and full of surprises. See you in the next part of the story about Trung the man on a journey to rediscover himself and to find the people he once loved.